Hello, it is Thursday and this is the infant feeding session on Facebook Live. So I'm Alex Moffat and I'm part of the infant feeding team here at the John Radcliffe. I'm hoping I'll start seeing some people popping up. It's very lonely on your own otherwise. Normally I have Naomi with me, but she's on annual leave. Lovely day for her today at least. Oh, I can see some people popping up. That's lovely. I hope you've got lots of questions for me today. Obviously, as it's infant feeding questions. I'm not the most up to date when it comes to things like inductions or scan appointments, etc. So I'm not the best person to be asking for those. You can save those questions for the Ask the Midwife sessions, which have been restarted. I can see some people appearing. That's really nice to know I'm not on my own. So as I said, this is the infant feeding session, so I'm here to talk about anything to do with feeding, whether that's, you're about to have a baby or you're just starting on your journey and it's really early in your pregnancy, whether you've had your baby or you're a long way down the line, like some of our regulars who come on, and we had a couple of them on last week, putting comments up and questions up, and their babies were 18 months and 14 months, and that's just so lovely. We love that continuity that we get through doing these sessions, because we get to meet some people in person and then we get to follow up their journey, which would never have happened before. So at any point in your journey, whether you're even just thinking about having a baby and thinking about, what does feeding mean and what might it involve for you and whether you might have a problem or not, you can use this forum to ask questions. So the whole idea of this forum is that I'm here to answer any questions you've got about feeding, and I'll do my best. I can't answer every question, but I will look things up, and I have come back in the past the following week and given an answer to a question that came up the first week, or contacted the person independently. So have a think about what you might want to know. And I said, it's to do with anything. Within the infant feeding team, our remit is to do with feeding whatever way you're feeding, whether you are starting breastfeeding, stopping breastfeeding, formula feeding, mixed feeding, or looking at going on to complementary foods at 6 months, or feeding even the toddler. So any of that we will help with. We're very involved when it comes to safer sleep, so sleeping and making sure that you minimise the risks of sleep and nighttime, feeding, etc., to try and minimise those risks that we all know about. So I thought I'd have a quick chat today, starting off before the questions start coming in, and I hope a few start coming in. I hope you're all thinking about questions to ask me. So anyone who watches this knows I do like the questions. So I was having a think about where you can get help, where you can get information. So there is a plethora of information out there, and some is superb. So some of the information is fabulous, and we're very lucky in the Oxfordshire area to have quite an abundance of places to get breastfeeding support, both face-to-face and online and by telephone. And so the places that you can go if you're just about to have your baby and you want to know somewhere you can go and get help, somewhere like Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support is a really good organisation. So the La Leche League are brilliant as well. Abingdon Breastfeeding Cafe, which is obviously in the name, it's in Abingdon, and sort of other things such as the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers, NCT, National Childbirth Trust, the Breastfeeding Network, are all places that will offer support and help. So thinking about those initial days though, I've said this over and over, and anyone who's listened to me before knows that I've said this. All our staff are trained to help with breastfeeding. Every single member of staff within the hospital will have training to help with breastfeeding. So they will be able to help you, and they also can help and support you if you choose to bottle feed. So that's your first line of support. And assuming everything goes well, you'll have help from the midwives or the maternity support workers for up to 10 days after your baby's born. If your baby's a little bit slow to gain weight, then actually you'll probably carry on seeing them for a bit longer, up to 28 days. And then the next person to support you going forward after that is the health visitors. We straddle that. As the infant feeding team, we keep mothers on for a bit longer. So although a midwife's remit is 28 days, as the infant feeding team, we continue to support mothers up to 6 weeks. So if you were to come and see us in breastfeeding clinic, we can see you up to 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, it's the health visitors that take responsibility for any issues that are going on with feeding, any specialist support that's required. So we're up to 6 weeks and the health visitors thereafter, and your community midwives for normally the first 10 days up to 28 days dependent. But as I mentioned, there are lots of other places you can go. If you're expecting a baby and you want a bit of support beforehand, you could look at the Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support's antenatal sessions. So they run antenatal sessions that are online and absolutely superb, giving you all the tools you need before you have your baby to get you off to a good start. We have on our website here at the hospital, on the feeding website, so if you were to look for us, you'd go OUH, maternity, feeding. You would be able to find a whole load of resources that we as a team have put up. We've put up 7 videos that we cover from skin to skin, hand expressing, pumping, feeding, the importance of relationship building and responsiveness and how that builds your baby's brain. We cover how do you know your baby's getting enough milk. So there's so many resources there. And I did a quick search before I came on here thinking, what was I going to talk about? Because Naomi's very good at keeping the chat going and it's very easy, there's 2 of us, but there's only one of you, it's a little more difficult. So I had a quick look. And I've just seen a video on online. If you look at the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers, ABM, they have the most gorgeous video about what they call lactation. So if you want to know how lactation works, it's the most fantastic accessible video, beautifully done, very simple but really accessible, all about how lactation works. So what's happening during pregnancy, what happens directly afterwards and beyond, and how lactation is established. So if you want to go and have a look, if you maybe haven't had your baby yet, or you're still curious and you have had your baby already, then maybe go and have a look at the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers. They have lots of other resources too, but this video stood out for me. I thought this was a lovely video and explained how lactation works in such a simple way, in such a, an accessible way. We talk on these sessions a lot about establishing your milk supply, and this is what this video is about. It's talking about how your milk supply is established. So should you have a baby that is maybe separated from you, a bit jaundiced, a bit sleepy, maybe a bit early, a bit premature, then you maybe would be struggle to get your baby to feed well. And in that instance, you need to get your milk supply going. So it's when there is a problem, then we need to get you pumping or hand expressing first and pumping later, as soon as possible, because your body responds to the stimulus. If you don't stimulate your milk supply, then you don't have a milk supply because your body doesn't get round to it. Now I can see some questions coming up, so I'm going to go on to those, and hopefully they'll spark other things as well. So thinking about help, I'll come back to it a bit later if there's a bit of a lull in the questions. There are some great organisations out there. Now let me have a quick look and see what questions we've got. We've got Charlotte on. She's our absolute regular, one of our top watchers. She says, "Hi Han, hope you're okay. I have an interview in London for a job, so Alicia will have to go to the nursery. She'll have to be a big girl." She will. And I know she's walking. Oh, she's getting faster at walking and also laughing. She's getting so grown up. Charlotte has been watching these sessions since they started in April 2020. So pretty much. So we've been watching Alicia grow up, which is really sweet. Helen has said, "Hi there." Oh, yeah, I've just covered it. "Hi there, we're starting to buy all the last bits for our baby, which is due in April. Is it worth buying a breast pump, manual or electric, before the baby is born? Or shall we wait until he's here? I don't want to waste money on something I might not end up using, but equally want to be prepared." Now, why am I not allowed to go down and look at the rest of that question? It's always the tech, isn't it? This is why Naomi doesn't like doing it on her own. Let me see if I can get that question to... Bear with me, everybody. So I've not got the bar to go down. Huh. Sorry folks, I know this is a bit silly, but it's not working. Let me just see if I can get the questions up in a different way. Huh. Typical. Right. Sorry. Have they come up below? Nope. Right, I'll read it off the screen then, which is always a recipe for disaster, because when I flip the screen, I'm terrible at it. Right, so she said electric Seymour. Let's just see if I can get it to work that. Oh. don't want to waste money, something I might not end up using, but equally want to be prepared. So that was the end of your question. I'm so sorry. It will not let me go down on my computer for some unknown reason. I can't get back down again. So there's no need necessarily to buy a pump. I mean, in this day of Amazon Prime, you can hang off and see if you need one. We also have community midwives who have some pumps, so if you were in need of a pump, then we could probably arrange a pump for you to go home with, if you were in real need of it. And it might come to light that you need a pump and you have time to buy it. So I would perhaps hang on, not worry about it. I mean, we talk about pumps quite a lot in these sessions. They are really useful, but the pump you buy would be bought for what your need is. So if you were going to buy, if you needed a pump just because you're going to express maybe once a day, because you wanted your partner to be involved and be able to give a bottle later in the day, then a hand pump would be absolutely fine, and that works for many women. But if you were pumping because you were struggling with your milk supply, we just talked about securing your milk supply, or maybe you and your baby were separated, or your baby couldn't attach, then you're going to be pumping a lot. You're going to be pumping a minimum of 8 to 12 times in 24 hours. And in that instance, definitely an electric pump would be the way to go, and a double electric pump at that, not just an electric pump. We'd be highly recommending a double. So I think wait and see what you need, because it isn't something you have to buy in advance. It's something you can get very quickly. We have a number of different hospital grade pumps in the hospital. So we have pumps made by Medela, we have pumps made by Amida, we have pumps made by Ardo. Now those companies make little domestic ones equivalent of the ones, they're big ones, and the pump kits that you get from here will fit those pumps. So, and you can get them overnight. So there is lots of reasons to hold off, wait and see whether you need a pump. You might be one of those lucky mums who just never need a pump, or you might just want to do it once in a while, in which a hand pump is great. Or you might need to be really stimulating your supply and you're going to be pumping quite a bit for a little while, and then a double electric would be the way to go. So, and the double electric pump, well, the electric pumps vary so much. You can get an electric pump for sort of under 50, right up to 250. So there is a huge variance. So I perhaps would hang on and wait and see how you get on. Maybe so just tout around if you've got friends who've had babies, maybe see if any of them have got a pump you could borrow, so that if you needed one you could just give them a shout and say, can I pick it up on the way home, if you were in needed one. So just be aware of anyone who's got a pump around you, because there's something that you'll use for a period of time and then it'll get put away, and it's quite a good thing to share amongst people. So the only thing I would say, if it's an old Medela, we wouldn't recommend sharing old Medela pumps, because there's nothing to stop in the old ones the milk going into the pump. So old Ardos, old Amidas have a closed system, they're fine. An old Medela is not is not a closed system. Sorry, I'm coughing away. Not a closed system, so not really recommended for sharing. The newer pumps, they have a closed system up in the pump kits. The newer Medelas are fine. Older ones, not so much. So if there's no way of stopping the milk going from the pump kit into the pump, then you perhaps don't want to get one of those. But we do have a list of pumps that we think are pretty good, and ranging in those whole range of prices. So you can always contact us and we'll send you a list of the pumps that we are aware of. But that's not an exhaustive list. We're always meeting new pumps that mums are using. So maybe talk to your friends, have a look at reviews. Right. Let's just see if I can see the comments now. Yes, come up this time. Always the way, isn't it? So I've said that one. So Helen, I hope that answers your question. So I would say hold off, don't worry. And assuming you can get your hands on one fairly quickly, it's not something you need to buy now. Sophie has said, hi, when collecting colostrum before the baby is born, do you need to keep regularly collecting, or can you skip some days? You can skip some days if you want to. It's not that you're stimulating a supply, you're just removing what's there. So it's not like after you've had your baby. When you've had your baby, we need frequent stimulation, and we need it to be frequent and effective. So that's when we talk about maybe expressing 8 times in 24 hours, as I've just mentioned with the pumps as well. So if you're hand expressing, it's early days, it's colostrum, and your baby's born, we're going to be looking at getting you to express a minimum of 8 times in 24 hours to really secure and establish your milk supply. But before your baby's born, no, you don't have to worry about that. We say you can express up to about 4 times in a 24-hour period from 37 weeks onwards. And I know I've said this many times, but I'm going to say it again because we get new people on these all the time. Please don't bring it all in. If you're lucky enough to get quite a lot, leave the majority at home. Bring a small amount in when you come in. If you're coming in for an induction of labour, unfortunately, we know inductions take quite a long time. And actually, what you could be doing is expressing during induction. So don't bring your milk in as much as you can. So if you're in labour and things are progressing well, and you're coming in to have your baby, then by all means bring a little bit in. But if you're coming in for induction, I would leave as much of it as possible at home, because an induction is a slow process and there will be time for you to do more expressing. And remember, freshly expressed colostrum can be kept for up to 24 hours, whereas if it's been frozen, it can only be kept for 12. So if you bring it in having expressed it, let's say you've done an amazing job and you've got a number of syringes and you bring it in and it's beyond 12 hours by the time you've even got as far as having your baby, then your milk may have defrosted and we will not be able to use it. So please keep it at home, only bring it in as and when is necessary. Bring them, and if you want to bring them in, the barest minimum. We recommend that it was in a cool box with ice blocks to keep it cold. We do have freezers in the hospital, but as you can imagine, we're spread over 7 levels in this hospital. I'm on level 7 today. Delivery suites on level 2. We have births on level 7 in the spas. We have births on level 2. We have care on levels 5 and 6. So you can imagine what happens. It gets put in a freezer in one level and the mother will get moved to another level and we've lost the milk. And that's what does happen sometimes. So please hang on to your own colostrum. Keep it in a bag. Bring the smallest amount possible. And if need be, you ask somebody to bring it in for you if you do need it. But remember, if you've got it before you've had your baby, you're going to be easily expressing once your baby comes afterwards. Now, a word of just reassurance to those of you out there. If you have tried hand expressing and nothing has happened in the antenatal period, do not stress. This is not uncommon. Some women are great and get a leak before they have their babies and they can hand express before they have their babies. Many cannot. So just because you can't express before your baby comes does not mean you won't have milk. It does not mean you won't be able to feed your baby. So just keep going, so just keep, don't lose heart on that one. It is very, very common for women to not be able to express before they've had their baby. Right, moving on. I hope that answered your question, Sophie. Claire, hello Claire. Haven't heard from you in a while. So Claire has said, quick question about the possibility of antenatal colostrum donation. Does the milk bank accept colostrum harvested antenatally? I'm 27 weeks and with baby number 2. I was about to say it's got to be baby number 2 because we met you with baby number 1. Baby number 1's 20 months. Lots to spare. Just wondered if I could donate some. Thanks. Well, Claire, how wonderful. Have a chat with Amanda Wood. If you look online, go onto the hospital website, look up the Human Milk Bank. Amanda's contact details should be there. If you struggle, contact me and I'll get her email and get it to you. There is a minimum that they can accept. So this is because when they pasteurise the donated milk, it goes into the pasteuriser on its own. So if you were donating, Claire, and maybe someone else is donating, we never mix the two together. Yours is pasteurised on its own and someone else's would be pasteurised on their own. So there has to be enough to make it worthwhile pasteurising it. But contact her, email her, have a chat with her, or virtual chat with her, and see where you are. And I'm sure if there's sufficient, she'll be more than delighted to accept it. But how exciting! How absolutely fabulous, and please let us know when you've had this baby. So don't start hand expressing yet, will you? Because you're only 27 weeks. So we don't want you hand expressing until 37, remember. So no hand expressing yet, please, Claire. But really looking forward to meeting number 2. I'm so excited for you. That's wonderful. Right, Helen's come back and said thank you, and that was about the pumps. So hopefully I'm sure that'll be a question other people were thinking too. And that is the thing, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I really want to ask, please just ask, because the likelihood is somebody else is thinking the same thing. And there are no silly questions. I'm really happy to answer whatever. You know, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't want to put my head above the parapet. That's a bit what I'm like. And yet I do these sessions. But, you know, do, because you probably are asking the question that someone else is thinking too, and you'll do them a favour. So Helen said, thank you for that. That was about the pump. Charlotte says, anyone know where there's a big soft play near anywhere in Oxfordshire? My Alicia loves soft play. Sorry about this question. Well, in my day, it used to be Snakes and Ladders in Abingdon, so that used to be the place to go, but I'm not sure these days. I'm sure there'll be some other people that might just pop something up here and see. But, and your health visitors might be able to help on that one, on any of the baby groups, so worth an ask, Charlotte. Jessica said, when baby's born, how quickly do you need to feed the baby? Also, what happens if you have a C-section? So babies are born expecting to be breastfed. And we anticipate that you'll feed your baby, or try to feed your baby, within the first hour. That's because a baby is in a very alert stage, normally a very alert state after birth. And it's like a priming time. It's like a really acute learning time. All their senses are on to learn how to feed. If you have a lovely normal birth and the baby is left on your tummy, your baby will commando crawl up toward the breast and self-attach. I'm going to suggest that you go and watch the videos that are made by Global Health. The Global Health media do some absolutely gorgeous videos. They show babies being born. They follow 3 mums having their babies. You see them right at the end, literally pushing the babies out, babies being put on their chest, and then the progress that the babies make to feeding. And babies are literally hardwired to find the breast and attach, as long as they're not full of any medication. So whilst we know epidurals are pretty safe, we do know that they can make babies a little bit sleepy. So some babies, when they've been born by epidural, or any of the other sort of pain reliefs that go into the system, can make babies a little bit more sleepy and make them slightly less reactive when they're born. But give your baby time. So babies, I say, are hardwired to follow a set number of processes. They go through what's called the 9 stages, the 9 steps, and they work their way through sort of being awake, having a rest, doing a bit of crawling, licking around and finding the breast, attaching, feeding and sleeping. So if you go and look up something like the golden hour or the 9 stages, you'll find information about that. So we would be looking for your baby to feed within the first hour of birth. If it's a section, it can be slightly more delayed, but we do more and more skin to skin in theatre than we've ever done before. So the only thing with it is when you have had a section, you're pretty much flat, and when your baby is passed to you in skin to skin, they'll end up here, and because that's where there's a space. So some mums find it quite difficult, and some mums are a bit sick when they're being when they've had a C-section. Some mums vomit quite a lot. So it depends on how you're feeling, whether you can cope. But if you imagine that ideally your baby gets put skin to skin, so your baby would be naked, they just have a towel over them, and you would open your top and your baby gets put here, because that's where a baby expects to be. All babies expect to be skin to skin at birth. That's what they're anticipating. You won't be able to feed in that situation, but once you get taken to the recovery area, you will be helped to feed. So you might be on your side, which is the norm when you've had a C-section, because imagine you're numb from here downwards. So you would be put on your side and your baby will be put next to you, and you'll be helped to feed there. So make sure your partner knows what they can do to help. So it might be that your partner helps if you're feeling very sleepy, and mothers can feel very sleepy post birth. Then make sure your partners are there, keeping an eye on you, keeping an eye on your baby, because you're not going to be very alert. So yes, you can get quite an early feed in when you've had a section, but you might need some support. In fact, normally you'll need some support. You might be on your side and the baby is laid next to you. Try and be skin to skin. Get your baby just so they've got a towel wrapped over them, not round them, so their skin is next to your skin. because that's going to be really helpful for you for milk production and your baby's adjustment to extrauterine life. And when a baby is born, their skin hasn't got the skin floras that we have, but when your baby comes on your skin, your baby is then coated all over in your skin flora, because we all have our individual flora. Your skin to my skin is completely different. My skin to my family's skin is more likely to be similar. And that's what you do, is you coat your baby in your skin flora. And it's like, I describe it like a ready brick glow. It protects your baby and it stops other bacteria from maybe someone else, someone in the delivery room, wherever, in theatre. If they touch your baby, they're not going to transfer their skin flora, because your baby's already got yours. So I've gone on a tangent here, but we're talking about feeding. Ideally, within the first hour is when we would really like a baby to feed, because that's when they are most attuned for doing it. So keep them close. Don't let them go off and be weighed. Don't let them go off and have their obs done. Keep your baby on you, skin to skin, until after the first feed. And then you can think about maybe daddy or partner having a cuddle, going on the scales, all those sort of things after that first feed. Much more likely to go well if you can keep your baby on you. So that was a bit of a long-winded answer. I'm so sorry, Jessica, but I hope you sort of explains. But go and have a look, because, and anybody else who hasn't had their babies yet, go and have a look at stuff like the golden hour, and you know, the 9 stages. It's what babies do when they're born. It's just this fabulous, and it doesn't matter where they're born. You know, here in the UK, it could be in the States, it could be in Australia, it could be sub-Saharan Africa, it could be anywhere. Our babies are hardwired to do the same thing all the way through. So, moving on. Right, Claire's come back. She says, thanks, because I'm still breastfeeding number 1. Oh, I was just reading something about that. I don't know if anybody follows any of the other sort of breastfeeding support people are around. There's one called Emma Pickett, and I follow her because I learn from other people. I find it really useful to see what other people in my world are doing. And Emma Pickett was talking about mothers who are feeding older babies, as well as going on to feeding their babies. So, you know, she might be someone worth having a look at. She said, I thought it would be okay to harvest colostrum prior to 37 weeks. We'll ask Amanda, thank you. But so it does make it slightly different. That's a very good point, actually, Claire, because obviously you're breastfeeding already. So, very good point. I'll have to think about that one. But we don't normally recommend the hand expressing colostrum. I mean, your milk, I don't know how your other ones coat, you know, and whether they're okay with you, you know, sort of now that you're pregnant, because often what happens is your milk will revert back to colostrum, and some babies that are being, you know, older ones that are being fed do notice, because it changes in taste. It gets a little bit more salty. But it'd be really interesting to, that's a very good point. I shall do some research into that, Claire, and find out, because La Leche might be the place to go. They're very good on things like this. That's what I was saying about at the beginning when we started this session. I was talking about where to go and get information, and there is such a fabulous plethora of information out there from really, really experienced people in the lactation and infant feeding world. La Leche has been going for many years. It started in the States. It's international now, and they have the most fantastic resources, and they have supported mothers, you know, with tandem feeding, which is what, you know, you would be doing if you fed both your babies, supported mothers through feeding through pregnancy, and I think have, and you know, sort of opened many people's eyes to what's possible, and their resources are fabulous. So Helen has said, should we buy some formula ahead of baby's birth in case breastfeeding doesn't work out? If yes, which brands or type would you recommend? We looked in Morrison's last week and the choice was overwhelming. Right, Helen, okay, you got me on my soapbox subject here. So, all formulas have to meet the UK requirements. So if you imagine, there is a standard that they have to meet. So all the formulas in the UK, if they're on the shelves in the UK, will have to meet that standard. So you do not need to buy on price. You do not need to buy on brand name. You can buy the cheapest formula and it will have the same nutrition as the most expensive formula. So for instance, if you were to go into somewhere like Lidl or Aldi, and they do sometimes have formula, and it's their own brand, it will be just as nutritious as any brand you might see advertised on the television. This is because they have to meet these standards. So to put it into context, one of the leading brands and one of the mid brands comes out of the same factory. One sells at £15 a tin, one sells at £7.49 a tin, and they are made in the same factory. And that's the same volume of milk. So you're getting 800 grams, you're paying 15 for one tin and £7.49 for another. Both will give your baby the same nutrition. So I liken it to paracetamol. So if you go into Sainsbury's or Tesco's or whatever supermarket you go to, and you can see a branded paracetamol and a own brand paracetamol, both are paracetamol. Both will deal with your headache. Both have the same constituents, but one's much cheaper than the other. And when you come to see us in the hospital, we don't ask you which brand of paracetamol you want. You get the paracetamol that we buy in the hospital, and it still works. So you can buy whichever formula you want. It will do what it says on the tin, its formula. It will meet the requirements that the baby needs. It will have in it protein, fat, sugar, water, vitamins and minerals. That's what they've got to have in them. Anything that they claim that they have that's different to a different one, they might say they've got oligosaccharides or they've got nucleotides, or they love advertising these things. There is no proof that they work. There's no proof that your baby gets any benefit from those if they are claiming that and no one else is doing it. Because if they were needed, every single one of them would have to put those in there. So you can go and buy on price, and you can buy the cheapest, and you can just stick to that one, and that's fine. And you only need first stage formula. You do not need to buy follow-on milk, hungrier milk, sleep tight milk, colic milk, reflux milk. They are all marketing ploys. So there's no need to buy any of those. Any baby that has been formula fed only needs first stage formula from when they're born to when they're a year, all the way through. First year, first stage formula. No other formulas needed. The other ones are because here in the UK, we didn't sign up to a code. So there's the World Health Organization breast milk substitute code. We know it as the code in our world. In the UK, we only signed up to this non-advertising code up to 6 months, which is why you've seen so many different formulas, because after 6 months they can advertise. And that's why you see advertising on the television and in magazines and things like that, but you will always see that they're for over 6 months. And that's how they get round the fact that advertising is not allowed under 6 months. So they have all these other formulas and make it sound like you need to go on to something. And that's the other thing you do see, is you see the formula, when they use the formula adverts, they talk about when you're ready to move on. They make it sound like you need to move on. You do not. You can stay on first stage formula all the way through, or you can breastfeed all the way through if breastfeeding has gone well for you. So there is no need. So save your pennies, save them and do something nice. Go out for a nice meal, the three of you, baby in a chair, you two together. So don't worry about, spending your money on branded formulas. You're not getting better. So they have to be the same. Sorry, I told you that was my soapbox subject, and I get really about it. And I answer the buzzers on level 5, so very often I'm on level 5 and the buzzers might be going, and I'll go and answer a few buzzers. And if I'm asked to go and get a bottle of formula by a parent, I will say to them, have you used it before? Because I want to know why they might be giving it. And then I will say, any particular reason you've asked me for that brand, because they'll often ask me for a particular brand. Now, here in the hospital, we do have 3 brands. We don't have any allegiance to any of them. The only reason we have 3 is because if we only had one, we would look like we had an allegiance to one. And so we have 3 different. If we run out of one, we're going to give you a different one, because as far as we're concerned, as I said, it's like paracetamol. They all do what they said on the tin and no more. So do you need to bring it in? Which was your first question. I've answered the second question. Do you need to bring it in? No, You do not need to bring it in. Come in expecting to breastfeed if that's what you want to do. Come in with a positive mental attitude. And this is what I say to staff as well. If they come to me and say, can you give me a hand with so-and-so, I would like to get some help feeding. And I say to them, you go in and be their confidence, because you need people being confident in you. I'm confident in you lot getting it right. And we assume you'll produce milk, full milk supply. We assume your baby will feed until proven otherwise. If you need formula, then we do have formula here. But before we would give you formula, we would offer you donated breast milk. So Claire has just asked about donating to the milk bank. We are really, really lucky here in the UK, in this hospital at OUH, because we have a fabulous milk bank. We have amazing, wonderful mothers like Claire out there donating to our milk bank, which means that if you're on one of our wards and your baby needs other milk than your own, because maybe you haven't got quite enough, you haven't quite caught up with them, then we can offer you donated breast milk. That's given free of charge, is given with love by all our mothers in Oxfordshire. They're screened, the milk is pasteurised, it's screened again before it's handed out. And we would give you that before we would give you formula. So as long as you're expressing and you're making an effort to feed your baby, we would give you donated, because that keeps your baby on human milk for as long as possible. If you don't wish to do that, that is fine, that is your choice, but we will always make that available to you as long as you are making an effort, as long as you are trying to feed your baby or trying to hand express. As long as you're doing that, donated comes first. So don't bring anything in with you. Come as you are. Come in with loads and loads of confidence. Go and access some of those videos I've talked about. Go and see, go and look at the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers. Go and look and see how lactation works, so you know. Go and look at some of the other resources around, UNICEF Baby Friendly. Come in believing you can do it. And maybe see if you can get onto the Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support antenatal classes, because they're really good too. So there you go. That was my thing about formula. Hope that helps. Right, I better crack on because I can see questions coming up. It's obviously me because of my rants. Jessica, she said, thank you. It's good to know, especially if a C-section happens. Absolutely. And sadly, we never know. They do happen, C-sections, but it doesn't mean you won't breastfeed. Claire's come back. He loves the colostrum. That's fabulous. Takes him back to when he was tiny. Oh. Charlotte. Oh, she said she had algae milk. There you go. And how I can tell you now, her daughter's gorgeous because she sends me pictures and she's walking and cute as can be. So, yeah, save your pennies. Helen said, thank you, very helpful. Tanika said, I've been breastfeeding my 5-month-old exclusively. My milk has suddenly dropped and he won't feed without fussing and crying. I've been giving him some bottles, also putting him to bed earlier so he wakes during the night so I can breastfeed him to get more sessions in. Good on you. How can I improve my supply so I can go back to exclusively feeding? Tanika, I'm going to ask, maybe your periods have started, because that can happen. We know that there can be a very slow, transient drop in milk supply if you are ovulating or your milk or your period, and all your periods are starting. It might be that. And that will pass. So I think your idea of trying to just get a bit more milk going is great. Just try and offer him food a bit more frequently, maybe. Keep going, because this can be a time, I don't know if anybody out there else has had fed older babies and got beyond this stage, but it is not uncommon. So it may be that you're just ovulating at the moment. You may already be able to come back to me and say, yeah, your periods have started again. We do see a transient drop, but it will pass. Keep going though. It's going to be a passing phase. If it isn't, get in touch and we'll see what else we can do to support you. Obviously, unfortunately, we can't see you because you're over 6 weeks, but we can talk to you on the phone and maybe signpost you to other support. La Leche, I've mentioned a couple of times, La Leche are very, very good at supporting mothers with breastfeeding, so you could have a chat with somebody on the phone. Oh, I can see you sent another one through. Let me scoot down the questions. Sorry to those that come in between. She says, I was producing 180 to 200 in one pump session. I can only get 60 to 80 in one power pump session. Okay. Started at 8 weeks. Okay. Never had an issue with my milk. Also on solids. Should I keep that routine of solids or focus on the breastfeeding? Ooh, good question. Should you focus on the... I think keep the solids going if you've already started on them. And I I probably would be offering the breast and see if you can do a bit of pumping in meantime. I'm sure this isn't going to be longer, you know, ongoing. It's going to be a quick dip and then again. You don't lose milk instantly. It's, you know, maybe there's something going on in your life. Maybe, you know, you've got some stresses and strains can really have an impact on your milk supply. I go into it believing it's going to get better. Keep going off of the breast perhaps a little more frequently, so that it's little and often as opposed to bigger feeds. And remember, a baby is always better than a pump. You know, so if you can slip, I'd be interested to know if you're finding the night feeds are easier, because quite often we find when they do get a bit, you know, a bit ratty at feeding, night feeds can normally be quite good. So you can sort of front load at night and then have to deal with the day. As I say, I think maybe see how you get on. Contact La Leche. I think La Leche is probably the best organisation for you to have a chat with, because they're used to helping mothers with older babies. They're very, very good supporting. So I would suggest that you get in touch with them. But be reassured, milk supply does not just drop and disappear. Your breasts know how to make that volume of milk, and the likelihood is that you will get back there, even if it has just dropped for the moment. I hope that's reassured you a bit. I'm sorry that you're having this. That's no fun at all when you've been feeding so well. Good luck. Rachel has said, I've literally just joined the live, and that formula feature was really good. My rant. Thank you, Rachel. It is. I'm afraid poor people who come across me when they say to me anything about formula, and I just go into it. So I just think, you know, don't line the pockets of those people. You don't need to. You can save your money, buy a cheaper brand, and your baby will be just as good. So, Bianca said, how much of pumping is physical versus psychological? I've got a Ardo Calypso electric pump, don't seem to be having much luck with it. I have also got so many different flange sizes and gone through them all, and only seem to get an initial letdown and then nothing. Have managed to get a few 120ml bottles over the last few days from letdown alone, but in trying to get more milk I turned the vacuum up to max and then the nipples got really sore. Currently on a pumping break, but I'm not sure if the problem is to do with the incorrect flange sizing or the fact that I'm stressing about getting so little milk out. Right. So, Bianca, a lot of it's psychological, a huge amount of it's psychological. That's a bit like I've just mentioned a minute ago about Tanique. You know, I said, you know, actually, if you have stresses and strains in your life, it can have an impact. If you think about oxytocin, the hormone that releases your milk, this comes from the pituitary gland back here, down into your breast. It's your love hormone. It's the hormone you get when you're stroking. It's that wonderful hormone that, you know, when you make eye contact with your baby and cuddle them and kiss them, you're both releasing. It's the fertilizer for your baby's brain. It really grows baby's brain. It's also the hormone that contracted your uterus. But it is a shy hormone. So if you're feeling in pain, stresses and strains of life, you know, family illnesses, you're not in a great way, you're not feeling very well, so, you know, all these things can have an impact. So we can inhibit letdown. That's just what I'm thinking with Tanique, whether that's a bit more to do with, you know, could it be something else going on, not just a physical thing? So we can really inhibit letdown. With regard to pumping, I often say to mums, pop your favourite box set on. Put some music on that you really like. Don't look at the bottles. Put socks on the bottles. Be aware that it's coming. Look at the flanges. See the milk's coming. But don't look at the volumes. Try and distract yourself. If you've got your baby nearby and your partner's maybe holding them, smell your baby. Kiss your baby. Get oxytocin flowing. You need that oxytocin because it becomes self-perpetuating. If you're sitting there going, oh, I didn't get very much milk last time, and you sit there stressing because you're worried about getting milk, it's going to happen again. So find something that makes you laugh. Watch something on television that you really enjoy. I mean, there's the wonders these days of being able to watch whatever you want. You know, in my day and age, you know, you had to put up with what was on television. I couldn't pick and choose, but now you can pick and choose. Find a program that makes you giggle. Find a program that you really enjoy. So that pumping is just the sideline. You're just doing that at the same time as watching something you really enjoy. That may help. So that's the psychological side of it. With regard to the Calypso is actually a really good pump, and I mentioned pumps earlier. We have the Ardo, can I remember what they're called? they're big ones. We have the two big ones on the wards, but the Calypso is the little one, and they are really, really good pumps. But it's how you use them is important. So with the Calypso, you may already know, and apologies if you do, but what you want to do is always mimic the baby. Start with fast cycles, because you know you can go up and down. They've got little, they've got an electronic display, and you can see a little bar that goes up and down. So start with fast cycles and lowish vacuum. And when you start to see the milk coming, drop your cycles right down and up your vacuum to comfort, not max, just comfort. So if you go up and you go, oh, that's a bit sore, bring it back down again. So it's start fast cycles, low vacuum. Then the milk comes and you're going to do this. You're going to drop the cycles really slow, up the vacuum to wherever is comfortable and no further. Put your box set on. Don't look at the bottles. Maybe put a pair of socks over them. Be aware of the milk coming. When the milk slows or stops, have a quick break. Put them back on again. Look again at the television. When it slows or stops, which will be a shorter period of time, have a quick break again, do it again. So each time do 3 times. See how that works. So yes, physical, yes, psychological. Oxytocin is a shy hormone. Try and overcome that. Try and put your brain into a nice place. But see how you get on with that, Bianca. But they are really good pumps. With regard to the funnel, you said you've tried all the different ones. What you want is that the nipple moves freely in the funnel, that it isn't rubbing on the sides, that it's sitting, that the funnel side, this bit, is sitting beyond the base of the nipple. It will take some of the areola in, and that's fine. What you don't want is, I haven't got a bigger one, that's that one. So you don't want it so that the nipple's up against the sides and rubbing. You need the nipple to move freely within here. There are some guides on there, but I think as long as you've got, you know, a few millimetres beyond the base of the funnel size on the breast, so you've got a few millimetres of areola coming in, that should be fine. We tend to find bigger is better than smaller, but everyone is different. Bianca, long answer. I hope that answered your question. Yes, physical and psychological, and see how you get on with those tips, and see what happens. And again, same as I said to Neat, you've had that milk, your body doesn't just lose it, it just keeps going. You know, just try and be positive. It's a positive mental attitude day today, obviously. It's me chatting about that. Yeah, so Tanique said about that we saw that, poor love. Yeah, both of you very similar. Charlotte's put a post up. We're talking about, I mentioned obviously going on to complementary foods, and thinking about food before one is just for fun, and she's just put that up there. It is very much thinking about, you know, anyone who is going on to complementary foods, the main food at this point in time is still going to be the milk, which is obviously what, you know, we were chatting about earlier on with the you know, we're chatting about problems with milk supply, and ideally as much of the calories will come from milk as possible, but they are going to get some from the complementary foods, and they're learning about eating and trying different things, which is fantastic. Bianca's come back, so that's helpful. Thank you. Brilliant. Aha. Thank you, Vic. Vic has said it's the carom. She's totally right. I couldn't remember what the pump was. It's the carom. So she's worked with me, as our lovely Vic. Vic has said it's the carom pump. So the Calypso is the little Ardo, and the carom is the really big one that we have. We have 2 of those on our ward, and they are really good, but they work exactly the same way. They've got these dials that go up and down, so you press them up and down. If you've got one of our Amida pumps, they've got little dials on the front, and it's exactly the same idea. If you are in with us, have a look. All the pumps now have got a laminated sheet that shows exactly how to use it and what to do. So it's written in there. It's to make it idiot proof, because we were finding that people were being given pumps and weren't being explained how to use them, and then they weren't using them effectively, and then wondering why it didn't work for them, and then sadly they may miss, you know, some very vital time for getting their milk supply up. I've gone on about, you know, securing and establishing a milk supply, it is really important to get that milk supply going if for any reason your baby is not doing it for you. We don't get this time back. The first 2 weeks are when we get the most opportunity, the best opportunity of establishing a milk supply. We go beyond those 2 weeks, it gets increasingly difficult to really push a milk supply. So the first 2 weeks are when we really want to go for it. So, working on it there. And once it's established, this goes back to Tanique and to Bianca. Once it's established, the body knows how to make that much milk. Even if it dips, it should be able to go back up. So, sometimes mums aren't very well, or maybe the baby has fed slightly less for one reason or another. Maybe the baby hasn't been very well. But once you start stimulating again, you should be able to go back to it. I always use an example of a baby that was admitted to hospital at 18 months and had been, needless to say, not getting all its nutrition from breast milk, getting some nutrition from breast milk. We were involved in the care of this baby, or this mother, and this baby just didn't want food. It was feeling very unwell. It was only in hospital for a week. It was very unwell, and it just breastfed. By the end of the week, this mother, who'd had enough for morning and night, so very small amounts, had a full milk supply again. And this just shows how the body remembers. Once you've got your lactation sorted, you've laid those foundations in the first couple of weeks. If it drops later, you can get it back. So by frequent and efficient stimulation. So I hope that acts as a reassurance for the two of you that have been struggling with your supply. It should come back. But I would say that there is a huge psychological impact on this. So, if you are worrying, which is quite natural, of course you would, but try and take that, distract yourself, try and, put something on you like, cover the bottles and see how you get on. Right, have we got any other questions? Alicia said, Charlotte said, Alicia's doing well with food, it's coming on slowly. And some children are like that. I think Alicia's nearly 2, if I remember rightly. Some children do not take to solids readily. They take quite a long time to get to them. And there is no huge hurry. As long as they're getting nutrition, as long as they're growing, as long as they're meeting their milestones, then, we all do things in our own time. There isn't a set pathway for children, for babies to meet. You can think about learning to drive. Some people can pass their test in 10 lessons and others will need 30 and 40 and 50 lessons. So we are all different. We learn at different speeds. We acquire knowledge at different speeds. We acquire skills at different speeds. And that's the same with this, because breastfeeding is an acquired skill. And for a baby, learning how to eat solid food is a new skill as well. They're learning how to coordinate, hand and mouth and swallow. So, it's all very new for them. And that's what they're learning about. And a lot of it is a lot of going in and out and on the floor. My house floors were never so clean as when I had children being on solid foods, because it was permanently on the floor. So I was always washing the floor. But I think I've done all the questions, unless anyone's got any for me. So the last few moments. So I've had some really interesting questions, and interesting how we always get a bit of a theme. So we had a bit of a theme about volumes and pumping. That was very interesting. So as I was saying, places to look for support for any of you that have already had your babies, not quite there yet, thinking about where you can go. Looking online at things like Association of Breastfeeding Mothers is really good. I would highly recommend that. La Leche I've already mentioned. UNICEF Baby Friendly Initiative has some really nice videos, lovely videos about why relationship building is so important. We talk about all the practical things, a lot as midwives, and we as the infant feeding team talk a lot about the development of babies, thinking about babies' brain development, linking that brain development to that relationship that you build with your baby, that every time you interact with your baby, that you're boosting their brain with that lovely oxytocin, and that they then learn to rely on you, they learn that you're going to meet their needs and they can trust you. So that closeness and comfort, that interacting with your baby, not leaving them to cry, meeting their needs, because remember, babies can't manipulate you. They haven't got the brain capacity. You can't spoil them. It's not possible. They need to be close to you to feel safe. They don't know they're safe if they're not next to you. So all of this is really important. It fits in with oxytocin, which is a hormone which we've talked about so much today. And as I said, it's a shy hormone. So with babies, you know, if they're upset and stressed, then oxytocin isn't doing much for them. Calm them down, give them a cuddle. Oxytocin's doing a lot for them. I can see a few more questions coming through. Let's see what we've got. Laurie Betty. Hello, Laurie Betty. She said, hi, Alex. My daughter's 1 and 2 months. She eats well, but her weight has been the same from 10 months. Is this normal? Well, we do normally expect babies to keep going up, Laurie Betty. It's probably worth having a quick chat with your health visitor and see what they say. If she's been the same weight from 10 months till now, which is obviously 4 months, then she's probably dropping off the centiles a bit. So I remember I've got a red book. Yes, I have a red book. So, you know, thinking about your centile charts, there's a risk that if she hasn't gained any weight, that she is dropping down the centiles. I'm trying to find the girlies one. I seem to only have the boys one in here. Oh no, I have. So, oh no, I have only got the boys. So this one's been written on. But if you look at your centile chart, you need to see what she's doing, because she should really be going up along the centile. We don't need great amounts of growth. We just want fairly steady growth. So that's definitely a conversation worth having with your health visitor. I can see you've sent some more through. Let me have a quick peek and see what you've said. Probably give me a bit more information. Okay, so you've and obviously someone's taken this very seriously, because they've taken. You said she's very active and blood tests are normal. So I'm glad to see someone has looked into it. I think, and hopefully they're going to carry on keeping an eye on her. We would expect, you know, children to keep growing. The rate of growth definitely declines. If you look at the centile charts in these books, you'll see that the rate of growth. I don't want heads. We want weight. If you look at your centile chart, now you won't be able to see this very well, but if you look at the centile chart, you'll see it starts quite rapidly up, and then it plateaus. Now I know this is going to be back to front for you all, but sorry about that. So the growth from birth to the first 6 months is quite, well, first 4 months, sorry, is very quick, and then it begins to plateau and the growth is much slower. That's normal. But what you do expect a baby to do is to continue growing, you know, at their own line. So what babies will often do is settle on a line and they'll carry on growing. Now, we don't expect babies to necessarily go up the lines, and we don't really want babies to go down the lines either. We want them on or around a line. Some babies are going to be at the top, and I've just done breastfeeding clinic today, and I've had one that must be nigh on at the top, and some are going to be right down here. For instance, my babies were always down here. Mine were just trucking their own little lines underneath, because I'm not very big and my husband's not very big, so needless to say we didn't have very big babies. So our children were sitting down here. But we have to have babies across the spectrum to have an average. So some have to be here, some have to be here, but we do want them to be following a line. And I can see, Laurie Betty, you've just popped another message up. Let's just see what you've said. I've always been underweight myself, but always been healthy. I think it's not so much how light they are, and that's what I was saying, Laurie Betty, is that we do know that some babies will be down the bottom, but we do anticipate they should keep growing a bit. I can look at my own family, and none of us grew very quickly, but it's a case of that they are growing a little bit. So I'm glad that people have taken you seriously and that they have looked into it, and just because when babies aren't growing, we're looking to see, you know, why that might be. Is there an underlying condition? Is it intake? You know, is it transfer? And that's what we look at. You know, is the baby taking in enough food? Is the baby is there enough food available? And when it's expressed, you know, when we're talking about breast milk, is the baby transferring it well? So I'm glad, Laurie Betty, that they're looking into it. And I would say that keep under them. Oh, she's come back, so thank you. So yeah. I would keep in touch. I presume you must be under some paediatricians, and if they're happy with you, then that's great. Keep going, and hopefully she'll just suddenly do a little catch up. Right, I saw a few more coming through. Where is Laurie Betty? She was there. Charlotte's asked, is the chat on next week? Yes, it should be 2 of us again next week. Naomi's back from leave, so there'll be 2 of us the next few weeks, and then I've got a bit of leave, so Naomi doesn't do it on her own. So it will be there'll be 2 weeks off in March. Carla, tuned in for the first time in a while. My baby's 18 months and still breastfeeding. Woo woo. Thanks for the support last year. It was nice hearing all this again. Thank you, Carla. And I think, if you know people out there having babies and they are struggling, this is a great way of asking questions. We've been doing, it's nearly 2 years since we started doing this. And as I said at the beginning, it is so lovely to have contact with people like you, like Claire. We've had, a few last week who've been feeding your babies for quite a while. We met at the beginning and we just love that feedback. As you can imagine, in our role, we see the people who are having a few problems. So sometimes it's just nice to be reassured that actually it worked out all right in the end, because we see you at your worst normally, which is always a bit tough for you. So well done, Carla. That's fabulous news. Charlotte's asked, do I think Alicia looks like she's healthy in the videos? Definitely. She looks gorgeous. Laurie Betty, yep, you've talked about that. I know. And I actually, Laurie Betty, I'm just going back to what you said. You said you've always been underweight. And I think we shouldn't underestimate the genes that our children take on, because they inherit these genes. And I said my children were always at the bottom. I'm 5'1". I'm tiny. I'm only little. So it's not surprising my children were little. They were little when they were in me. I didn't have very big babies, and they never grew terrifically fast. So that's, we do have to bear in mind the genetics that our children inherit, and we do need to be open to the fact that not all children will grow at the same rate and at the same speed. So, and I'm sure that's what the paediatricians will be taking on board as well, when looking at your lovely baby. But right, well, it's just gone 3:30. Unless there's a flurry now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you all next week. Huge thank you to you all for your questions. I always come on this when I'm doing it on my own. I come on this and think, what's going to happen? I don't want to dry up, but I'm so delighted with all the lovely questions. I hope I've answered them. If you feel that you need more information and I haven't given you all the information you need, then please do get in touch with us. You can ring us. We have a direct line into our office. You can find us on the internet, and we also have an email, so you can contact us directly by email, which is infantfeeding@team@ouh.nhs.uk. As I've said, we can't see babies over 6 weeks, sadly. We will talk to you on the telephone. We will signpost you to where you need to be. Please bear in mind that we are only 3 full-time equivalent midwives though, so we aren't very many. So we may not get back to you straight away, but we will get back to you as quickly as we can. Okay, right, I can see there's a couple more things come through. I think Charlotte again. She said she's little as well. All the best things come in small packages. So anyway, the lovely winky face. All right, until next week. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you for keeping me company. Goodbye.